side. Now, all these are Mark III generation MX-5 Super Cup cars. You've seen the Mark I original generation MX-5. These are slightly more bulkier, and I think unfairly for some people, slightly more unpopular MX-5s. I've seen some people mention that the Mark IIIs are the ones that they class to be their least favourite, but I would say that's quite doing these cars a disservice, because the Super Cup cars, not only do they look good in the liveries that they have, but also they sound great. And when you see a pack of them going together, it sounds like a pack of angry wasps going down the pit straight. I mean, as do all Mazda MX-5 cars these days and Cup cars. But the Super Cup cars making their way out of the assembly area onto the grid. They'll have one formation lap as always, 20 minutes of racing, and some familiar names at the front of the field, but also some pleasantly some not so familiar names at the front, including someone who probably didn't expect to be on pole position, but William Androbus has made a name for himself here, and straight away from his MX-5 Super Cup debut, straight to the top of the times in qualifying.
This Colin bloke you speak of sounds like he could be quite fast. Maybe someone should give him a go or something.
Well, as I say, apparently he's a 4-time British touring car champion, for whatever that's worth. So, but jokes aside, of course, he's a legend of British motorsport, and of course, and a fellow Irishman like our Fiesta STC40 trio on top of that as well.
Maybe you should have a go at
that. Northern Irish. I've got to get it right now.
Of course, you've got to get that right.
Yeah, he's Northern Irish, isn't he? Well, I'm not going to attempt it. He's from Ireland, but which part of it is? I think he might be. I'm not going to attempt it. I'm tripping over myself.
Yes,
I'm stop
Northern Ireland.
I got it right. He's from Northern Ireland.
Right.
Get that right, because of course I have to. Otherwise, I am going to be lynched.
Yeah.
Right. Enough of Colin Turkington, as much as we love him. Now onto the Super Cup grid. William Androbus on his Super Cup debut starts from pole position alongside Ollie Hall on the front row of the grid, who's been a contender for the last couple of seasons. Kamar Kelsey, who's been racing elsewhere in MX-5s, has been honing his craft. He's into the pro class starting in third, alongside Sam Middleton, who was a runaway club class winner last year, into the pro class as anticipated he would be. Then onto row 3, we find Thomas Langford, who was a former MX-5 Mark I champion, but debuted last year in Super Cup and picked up a victory in his first season, which is not easy to do in Super Cup. Typically, you need about a season to get to grips with these cars before you start to win. Alongside him on the third race, Dan Parham-Smith, good to have him back in the field after he's had a couple of sporadic appearances. As to Dendy, who was last year's Masters champion, starts in 7th alongside Scott Wright. Good to welcome him back on the grid in P8. And Steve Kite and Lee Dendy Sadler, who's been a name I've seen before in the likes of Fiestas and BMW Compact Cup, from the days when it was called that. Now he's into an MX-5 Super Cup car and starting in P10, which should be quite interesting to see. Then we have in the invitation class, I noticed this, we have Jihuai Wang in number 76, but that is a car that's not quite like the others, because that car is a Mark IV ND generation MX-5. Interesting to see. So that's interesting. Maybe that's possibly the next generation Super Cup car, next generation Specker Super Cup car. Answers on a postcard. He's alongside Christopher Kinn on the 6th row of the grid. I'm never doing that again. Row 7 is Jim Barrett and Martin Tolley for Richard Moore and Alexander Jones, and then Graham Rumsey and Jonathan Christie Rundle rounds out the 18-car field for the MX-5 Super Cup. And off onto the green flag lap they go. And this championship has been really a place where, at its peak, when we've had some top drivers in the mix, several top drivers who have been key drivers in the championship runs, like James Blake Baldwin, Donald Chandler, Alan Henderson's been a championship winner here before, Luke Herbert won the title 3 times, if I'm correct. Will Blackman Chambers, of course, who was last year's champion, has been a 2-time champion. Also so has Aidan Hills, who runs his own Hills Motorsport squad. Some very fast drivers that have gone through to other things in motorsport. It really is one of those championships where it's been proven over the years, if you can do well and win in Super Cup and actually get good results here, you can pretty much drive almost just about anything pretty damn well. So I imagine the drivers at the front of the field here, if they can win in Super Cup and do well, they could be setting themselves up for some pretty good stuff later on in their career, regardless of where they might be in their current racing careers at the moment.
Indeed, exactly that. Yeah, of course, in the Mazdas, and similarly we spoke about in the Caterhams earlier on, great cars to start your motorsport career in, especially when you move on from karts to cars. They're a great proving ground for drivers to get those fundamentals in and then build on that as they move up karting classes. Now, William Androbus, great to have him on the grid. As you say, amazing that he's stuck it straight on pole position here for the first race of the year. William, only 17 years of age, an ambassador for Sam Pollock Racing in karting, and has moved over to cars for this season, racing in the Mazdas and also out racing in Ginettas as well. William, vice British champion a couple of years ago in karting, now making his way into cars, and I mean, well, on raw pace alone, he's seemingly taken to it pretty well, hasn't he? And
it's not easy to do. I said these MX-5 Super Cup cars, it's not an easy championship to come into and be quick straight away. That's quite intriguing to see. There's the Mark IV ND Mazda MX-5 that we mentioned before, invitation class. Now, yes, you could say that over the Trophy they have a Mark IV class as well, so it could be that. But then there have been Mark IVs around in BRSEC circles for the last few years, so it's also been them kind of a bit of extension of that on top of that as well. And seeing whether or not there's an appetite for Mark IVs in the Super Cup category is a different class. So we'll have to wait and see if that takes off. I'm sure there'll be a few more people that want to try and give the Mark IV a try if they're interested and kind of get that more off the ground. But the ever tried and tested Mark III, certainly proving to be a competitive and fine car in the field all the same. And you can see the Mark IV and being run by, I think it's car 76. Yes, I can see even the logo on the back, I think. It's got a Production Cup number plate on the back, so I suspect 76. It's being run by Paul Sheard Motorsport. So good old Sheardy running a Mark IV. And good to see that we've got plenty of action, hopefully, to get some appetite for a few more of those on the grid. So cars to watch out for, as we mentioned. It is the William Antrobus Hills Motorsport car starting on pole position. That's the red car, and it's really nice, deep red on that car with the typical bright blue flagship colour, I was looking for the word, on Hills Motorsport on that car with the striping. Alongside in the front row, Ollie Hall in his same livery, which is white with the kind of red, yellow, blue sort of multi-colouring on that car in the decals. Kamal Kelsey's car is again another typical Hills Motorsport livery. It's got two-tone blue, some orange in there, and a few other bits on top of it too. Sam Middleton, his car, you can't really miss his. It is white and pink, so watch out for that car. And he was the club class champion last year, run away by quite. I mean, he was already battling with some of the pro class runners on a regular basis and did a grand job starting on reverse grid pole a couple of times on top of that as well. Thomas Middleton's car is the kind of metallic blue car just pulling into the shot behind Ollie Hall in 5th position, and Dan Parham-Smith's car is in red alongside him, so keep an eye on that one. One car to watch out for also is Martin Tolley. He is racing number 23, but his car is very much, I think, either an old or a spare car for Chris Ginn, his car has that kind of paneling, kind of hexagon paneling on the side of it, the kind of orange and sort of bronze and gold livery on that side of the car, so not to be too confused. It is Martin Tolley, not a second car for Chris Ginn, who's in the field a couple of places ahead in 12th on the grid. So 5-second board about to go up, and for the first time in 2026 we are set to go Clapham North Mazda MX-5 SuperCup racing here at Snetterton for the first time this year. Red lights are on. Can Antrobus win his first SuperCup race from pole? Can Hole or Co put the spoils on him this time? It's a fantastic start. Not a great start for Antrobus from the front row of the grid from pole. He's been swamped by both Hall and Kelsey and Middleton and possibly even Langford. So the pulses to the 17-year-old has been swapped down to, 4th, 5th, maybe 6th position, down towards the right hand, and Middleton's been shuffled out as well. He's lost out as a couple of cars have gone sideways. One car bouncing around over on the grass. That is the 88 off the road. That is Scott Wright. Welcome back to SuperCup, Scott. And into the hairpin at the right hand they go. Hall is in second place. No, Hall leads the way, but Langford up into second place past Kelsey. Antrobus fights back into 4th position, trying to get past his teammate. But it's Hall and Langford who lead the way down towards Palmer's. It's Antrobus back to 3rd, although somewhere around there somewhere has to be Kamal Kelsey, because he was out of shot for a moment, hiding behind one of the two cars. Where is he? Yes, he is there in 3rd position. In typical SuperCup fashion, side by side down towards the Agostini hairpin. Hall defending the inside line. Langford holding on to 2nd, still between Kelsey and Antrobus. The teammates 3rd and 4th. Dendy's into 5th position. As they turn in through the right-hander, there's car 16. That's Richard Moore in his rather bright yellow and blue machine. So again, a relatively calm start for SuperCup. It's not, I say calm in a start sense. It's going to kick off in a minute because here comes Kelsey up the inside of Langford. I spoke too soon. But at least in terms of getting around trouble-free, apart from Scott Wright's excursion at Ritchie's corner, everyone's mind their P's and Q's and...
What were you saying?
I want to hand to you, but I'm trying to finish the sentence. But everything keeps happening because Antrobus is down to 3rd. Here comes Dendy. I'm going to hand to you now before it gets even more key, but the top two are now nose to tail. For 3rd place, it's almost anyone's guess between 3rd, 4th and 5th.
It is indeed, yeah. Antrobus getting the push, isn't he, down the Bentley straight. Let's see if that works for him, if he can take 3rd place. I think it will be enough of a push to get through into 3rd, and it will be Dendy who follows through then into 4th place. So we reshuffle at the bottom end of the podium, but still, all these drivers in the top 10 absolutely nose to tail. I absolutely love having the commentary box right by the start line, because the smells that these cars leave behind is absolutely delightful. Is it tyres? Is it clutch? I don't know, but it smells fantastic. And the drivers press on through to the end then of lap number 1. Well, sadly there for Antrobus, his first start, not an ideal one, but he didn't let it fluster him. He settled in and he's made moves to get back into the top 3 at the end of lap number 1 then. 20 minutes on the clock for this race. After lap 1, we've still got 17 and a half minutes of those. And as we make it through, we press on to lap number 2 then. And it is Hall who continues to lead us on down through into Riches for the 2nd time, being joined by quite a number of other drivers. If Hall, Langford, Antrobus start to scrap again, we're surely just going to see a massive train for the entirety of this 20 minutes.
Definitely. I think Dan Parham-Smith might be in Aidan Hills' championship winning car from a year ago or so, because it's very much the same colours that he ran, the same colour scheme of blue with orange and black. Well, with other colours in there too, some pink in there for other customer cars, but usually Aidan's car was primarily blue orange and black, so that might not be his car that he's run, but it's now Dan Smith at the wheel of it. There's a reason why that car at one point was fastest in the times, because Darren, of course, a quick peddler. He's been racing Mazdas for a couple of years, and now he's getting used to coming back on the championship. But Antrobus looks to the inside line. He's not scared, is he, for a 17-year-old coming straight out of karting? Of course, that was a karting kind of dive and hope for the best move into Agostini Hairpin. It's kind of John sort of very fussily shakes his head, thinking, I don't know if they agree to that for a second, but he was second place.
I was just thinking he was never scared to make a move in a kart, so in cars he's really transitioning well, isn't he? But now he's having to think about defending. It's chucking it up the inside then is the 75 of Langford, looking to retake second place, and Antrobus might just get taken here by a few more drivers. There was a bit of contact there, a little bit of smoke off of the two cars. That's going to lose them a lot of momentum.
It is, but what it's also going to do is lose the momentum to the car in front, because Ollie Hall's going to be laughing all the way up the straight, trying to pull away from these cars. Look, he's got a substantial gap already from the cars behind him, because they're all scrapping amongst each other. And what have we said all day? The harder they fight each other, the easier it is for Ollie Hall to make a break. There are 5 of them going for second place. There goes Paris Smith to the inside of his teammate. The 3 Hills Motorsport cars are tripping up amongst each other so much, they've actually let both Langford and Dendy through. And it's now Kamal now to 4th position. It's now Paris Smith in 5th, and somehow Antrobus thinks, how the hell am I 6th now when I was 2nd a couple of corners ago? How's that happened?
Indeed, yeah, those moves being made, going side by side, and that little bit of contact through the right of Williams just lost them both that momentum, didn't it? Langford's been able to pull back through, but sadly, Antrobus not quite so easy. He slips back into the pack then, and now it is Langford and Dendy, as you said, who look to try and work together to re-catch Ollie Hall. Lovely lap there from Hall. What kind of gap has he been able to open up? A 1.2 second gap for Hall as we head then on to lap number 3. He just needs to try and settle into this one. Hit his markers as, oh dear, someone's pulling over to the inside. That's never where you want to be. And the 23 race over then. What a shame for Tolly. 8th place it was for Tolly, but clearly that car not very happy.
Martin Tolley, who has sometimes had some mechanical issues in the past with the cars he's had, but fortunately, when his car's on song and he's pretty good, he's a handy peddler, but unfortunately that car not doing well. Also in the pits as well, lead Andy Sadler, I'm afraid, so his first Super Cup start not quite going the way he was hoping. Leaders back into Palmer now on lap 3, and Ollie Hall has a 1.2 second advantage over Thomas Langford. I think that he and Dendy have realised, again, the harder they fight each other, the easier it is for him to try and escape up the road. So Langford, of course, who I was talking to at Alton Park last weekend, figures he's got confident about this year. Of course, he's got some pace in it, and he enjoys Super Cup, and he could have gone elsewhere, but he decided to stay in Super Cup because he enjoys it, he enjoys the paddock, he enjoys the car, he feels like he's in a good groove in terms of where he is pace-wise, so he thinks he can go for the title this year, and I'm not surprised because, of course, he's a former Mark 1 champion. If he can do it, he'll be only a handful of times has scored both a Mark 1 and a Mark 3 title, if I'm right. I think the only 2 people that have done that are, well, I know that who's done it? So I'm trying to think off the top of my head now. Alan Henderson, I think, has done it. If not James Bate-Baldwin, James Bate-Baldwin or Alan Henderson has done it before. Unless anyone else has. No, Will Blackwood-Chambers has, of course. He's won both multiple Mark 1 and Mark 3 titles. How could I forget that? He was champion last year. Come on, get it right, Scott. Only did it for 15 years. Anyway, back to the leaders. And Ollie Hall now, that's not 1.2 seconds anymore, John. I think he certainly brought that one down. There's some dust being kicked up at the back from somebody having an excursion up at Agostini Hairpin. We also saw there that was Ji Huai Wang in the Invitation Class Mark 4 ND specification MX-5, because we're run by Paul Sheard Racing. He's now up into the place past Jim Barrett by the look of it. And also in there too, you can see is that rather bright yellow machine of Richard Moore, who's making his debut in the championship, and a fine looking car up that too for his debut running the series as well.
Indeed, I think Wang had just got past Rumsey there through the last couple of corners, so good to see him getting stuck in as the invitational driver for this race. But Rumsey had a good start to this one, to be fair, coming up from 17th, knocking on the door of the top 10, but now just slipping back a position courtesy of that overtake from Wang. But yes, indeed, that gap's certainly not 1.2 seconds anymore between your race leaders. Hall has been reeled back in, but I think we would have expected that with Langford and Dendy working together, using the slipstream well, and closing up the gap to your race leader once more then. We're not even half race distance in this one yet. There's plenty of time for people to close in. Well, Paris Smith in 4th place has just taken the fastest lap on the last lap as well, a 2-minute 15.7. So the first driver down in the 2:15s, along with Langford in 2nd place. So good to see, crucially, the 2 drivers who could close this up and make it a bit of a squabble for the race lead again are doing just that, finding some really good pace, and we're now having our leaders close back up once more. But no matter where you look in terms of on track, there's battles galore, isn't there?
There is. It's in the back, in the middle, towards the front. There's somebody to race with. Good to see that the Mark IV MX-5, the ND, is having a battle with Christopher Ginn and his new livery. Of course, up until this point, he has been in that kind of essentially Martin Tolley is in Chris Ginn's old car, and he's now got a new car, which is now in this really striking kind of charcoal grey and green livery. Looks like a little bit of a green-eyed monster in some cases, which is quite fascinating to see. Should mention also that the top 6 is closed back up. It's 2.7 seconds between them, and I have to say, not that last year wasn't competitive, but we've actually got quite a nice competitive group of cars in this season. We've got 6 pro drivers that are really up towards the front and giving it a lot of good action. 6 or 7 that are in the mix. Case in which here is Thomas Langford going around the outside of Brundle and Nelson. Stop it. Thomas Langford goes past into the lead. So Thomas Langford, the former Mark I champion, bidding for the SuperCup title in his 2nd season. Ollie Hall in his 3rd or 4th season in the championship, and he started actually being one of the drivers that came through from that project from Top Gear, when he had Martin Plowman take them through as 2 drivers to kind of get to grips, and Ollie Hall used that to kind of actually build this momentum, get some good results, and of course he's now been a competitor in SuperCup and a front runner in the last couple of years, including battling throughout the last season to be in amongst the top 3. So Ollie Hall, definitely a driver who's come on strong ever since he debuted at Cadwell Park a few years ago, and doing a fantastic job, as he always has done. So it's now Langford, Hall and Dendy and Parron Smith in the top 4. Kelsey and Antrobus are in there as well, but the top 6 altogether. Middleton's dropped back to 7th, but he's not too far away. He's about 2.2 seconds back. Given how close he is to the front here, as they continue to scrap for the lead and for 3rd place and for 5th, there's every chance they'll get back into this group to make it at least a 7-car group for the lead as they come back to Palmer's once again on lap 5.
Indeed, he's got Steve Kite with him as well, only a couple of tenths back, so might just drag him along for the party as well. Well, let's see how much they decide to squabble at the sharp end of this group then. As you say, Langford back to the front. There's Antrobus trying to get involved. He's already made the move then on Kamal Kelsey, and now looking at the back of Daniel Parron Smith as well. So these 6 continuing on, but as you've seen, only from that tiny bit of squabbling. 7th and 8th closing in once more as well. Middleton and Kite looking to make this now an 8-car train at the sharp end of the order here in the Super Cup. Not disappointing once again, but now that we've had that reshuffle, Langford is looking good at the sharp end. It's been the first time in a while that Ollie Hall hasn't led this race. It's all a little bit too deep in the brakes there, down through Agostini for the number 88 of Scott Wright. He goes wide, I think has lost 2 positions because of that, sadly for him. So a little bit too late under brakes into Agostini. Very easy one to do, but he's lost 2 places because of it. We look back to our leaders, and Antrobus is up the inside yet again. This is going alongside then with Daniel Parron Smith, and those 2 will continue alongside. Well, let's make it 3 wide. What not? Calman Kelsey joins in for the fun as well. They continue to battle over 4th place as we're side by side for 2nd as well.
We are. Dan Parron Smith trying to make the move and trying to pick himself up there. It's 3 abreast for 4th, and there was a tiny bit of tangle, I think, because Antrobus got through. They just about survived all of that. Antrobus keeps his foot in and holds on to the place. Dendy is now holding off Kamal Kelsey in P6. And as I mentioned, Sam Middleton's not that far away. He's getting relatively close as they come back through the right-hander. Up through the right, up towards the bomb hole, out of Cora once again. Just turn their way through up towards under brakes and flicking left. And now onto the straight now. It's going to be Langford from Hall, from Parron Smith. Denny's now back to 5th position because he's now lost out to Antrobus as well. 8.5 minutes left on the clock.
Antrobus with the style points to the final corner as well. He was all sorts of sideways.
He was. But certainly share the flamboyance. I'm sure you would have seen from him several times in karting, so you probably weren't surprised about it, thinking that is just him all over the race car as well as the kart.
He's a classic feisty 17-year-old, isn't he? He wants to chase down the 3 as they continue to battle ahead of him. For 2nd place then, looking up the inside now, not quite able to make the move there is the number 4 of Parron Smith. So he's chased down these front 3, hounding the back end of Hall's car, but not able to make a move.
So out through the left-hander. Palmer's. Gap was just under half a second between Langford and Hall as they turn out of the left-hander at Palmer's. You always have to be careful with that corner because it's slightly off camber, or the way it's cambered, it can kind of just pull the car off the course if you're not too careful. And not being too careful, there's Ollie Hall if he doesn't defend that from Parron Smith, which he does. So holds on to the place and maintains 3rd position. Well, maintains 2nd, but he actually gets the undercut here with this Parron Smith, so he managed to force Hall into a mistake, and now he's got the inside for the left-hander at Hamilton's, and squeezes through and runs wide over the curb, but he's got trap position to hold the place, and under brakes, turns in, and yes, makes the move stick. Turns out through the right-hander, and now back up through the gears again, through the right-hander, again, turning right into Williams onto the Bentley straight once more, where they'll get back into a slipstream. There is Sam Middleton, last year's club class champion, now in pro. As we look back to Jihai Wang in the Seoul Invitation class Mark IV ND MX-5. He's battling away with Chris Gill and Scott Wright over the final top 10 spots.
I think Scott Wright had just chucked it up the inside there as they headed onto the back straight, so trying to make up those couple of positions that he lost a lap or so ago down at Agostini, just outbraking himself ever so slightly. Looks like he's made the places back, or at least he's trying to, as they'll continue on side by side. Now into the braking zone of Brundle. He has the inside line though. The 88 makes the move. Wang looking back up the inside there, almost leaning on the 88, but not able to drop back across, and loses the place once more. These three absolutely going at it throughout this one. Looks like they'll continue to do that through the final 6 minutes of the race. Well, all that squabbling at the sharp end of the order, especially between Hall and Parron Smith, has been the perfect opportunity for Thomas Langford at the sharp end, hasn't it? And we've said that a couple of times in races already today, especially with these kind of cars, the Mazdas, the Caterhams and that really settle into these big packs, these big group racing action. But Langford able to break away ever so slightly by about 6/10 on that last lap, courtesy of the battling of the drivers behind. Well, Ollie Hall already had the opportunity to do just that a few laps ago. Try and break away at the front, but it's all gone wrong at the front. They've come together. That is the 4 and the 70. That was Parron Smith and Ollie Hall, I think, who'd come together there down through Wilson, that was. So I thought about a move up the inside, but they've come together at corner apex, shuffled out on the grass, and they've all lost a bit of time. So how have we resettled us in then? So it's Antrobus into second place, and I think that is just ahead of Parron Smith, if I'm not mistaken. We'll double check that though as they continue on through this lap. But what a shame, we were settling into a really exciting battle there in and amongst our top 3, but it's all reshuffled itself with just over 5 minutes left to go. Well, these two are getting very friendly out on circuit, aren't they? Well, this time the 88 does not outbreak themselves into Agostini. Scott Wright holds the place, but Jihai Wang is really piling on the pressure here as they continue to battle for 9th place.
That's Langford
again. Is that Langford off?
It is Langford. That's Ollie Langford. That's Thomas Langford from the lead of the race. Is that an engine failure or a mechanical problem of some kind? But Thomas Langford from the lead of the race is out and pulls up against the barrier. So that is unfortunate for the race leader. And the former Mark 1 champion trying to start his second MX-5 Super Cup season with the best possible way. So that means William Antrobus is back into the lead of the race through all of that. So the tangle between Ollie Hall and Dan Parron Smith at the hairpin managed to promote a couple more spots. Langford was leading anyway, but Will Antrobus at his first MX-5 Super Cup start, like Moses, the sea has just passed in front of him. All 3 cars that were battling amongst them have gone either in their own incident or had mechanical issues of their own. And now he's there into the lead of the race and his first ever Super Cup start at 17 years old, which is not an easy thing to do in MX-5 Super Cup times. I can say that from having been around the championship for over a decade. Winning on your Super Cup debut is not something that anyone does typically. So if you can do that, regardless of the size of the field or the quality of the field, it shows how good a driver he is, how good a car Hull's Motorsport are preparing, but also how feisty he is as well with his opportunities that he can take. And as for Thomas Langford, well, he's thinking what might have been. So he is now having to go back into the drawing board, get that car fixed for the 2 races tomorrow, and try and come back through, because he'll have to do it, of course, Rat is from the back of the grid after he has retired. So therefore, he will have to, the finishing order of race 1, and that's Parron Smith coming back in, of course, after he had the issue. So he's now pitted after he was a lap down anyway. I thought it was another one of the Hills Motorsport cars having a problem, but it wasn't. I thought it might be Kelsey, but it's Antrobus and Kelsey from Dendy. And of course, Kelsey, of course, this is his first time, I think, in pro class as a championship point scorer. So Kelsey will get a first overall, I think it'll also be a first overall podium for him as well if he can manage it. And as the Dendy has been on the podium before, because he has been there and he dominated the Masters class last year on top of that too. So if he can manage that in that sense, he'll be in quite a good position. But Dendy will win the club class ahead of Steve Kite and Chris Ginn at this point if he stays where he is.
Yeah, what a shame then. Some drivers that we've lost then from this race as these two continue on side by side. That's to the left-hander of Palmer, that is. And they'll continue on side by side down to Agostini. Yeah, what a shame. A number of the drivers from the sharp end of the order then getting lost in only the last few minutes of the race, as you mentioned. They'll have to start from the back in tomorrow's proceedings. Well, that'll make it more exciting for us in the commentary box, but they're going to make it a lot more challenging for those drivers to get good points on the board from their first race weekend of the year. But as you say then, William Antrobus leads us on through this one, as here they are, 2 very similar car colours. I thought Antrobus had the most amazing lap of his life. Well, no, he's not cleared off from the field quite by that much just yet, but he is still leading us through then as they are on the brakes once more down through Brundle and Nelson. Well, I mean, William will know this from kart racing. It ain't over till it's over, and certainly has been shown here in the Super Cup. Of course, starting in pole, dropping back, fighting his way back through, dropping back a little bit again, and then suddenly everyone ahead didn't want to win the race, and William finds himself back in the lead with just less than 2 minutes to go. Well, for the moment, he's able to keep Kelsey and Dendy at arm's length here. There's no possible opportunities for Kelsey to even think of a last-minute manoeuvre here. He's going to have to close back up to the back of Antrobus's car if he wants a shot at the race win, but that's going to be easier said than done then. Under the gantry they go to start the final lap of this race. William only has a few more kilometres to hold on to this one to take the first win of the season here in the Clapham North MOT Mazda MX-5 Super Cup, which, as you say, Scott, would be an unbelievable achievement.
It would. Shout out also, we should mention, if he is watching happily, to the man behind Clapham North, who sponsors the championship, George Grant. Of course, he's been a former Masters champion in this category before, and of course is now exploring new opportunities, as we saw last weekend, of course, first hand in different cases at the Fun Cup Endurance Championship, partnered up with a certain other driver who's quite handy in an MX-5 Super Cup car, and been the champion back in 2014, and name's got Abby Eaton, who's not too bad in these cars, whenever she jumps into one of these every now and again. Of course, and she's now his pro driver, of course, and helping him out. And good to see Abby again as well. And I know for a fact that, of course, she's driven one of these cars as recently as a couple of years ago when George won the sort of Supersport Endurance Cup title in Club B with Abby. That was a bit of choice gesticulation by Asda Dendy to the back marker, number 60, which is Jonathan Christie Rundle, his first Super Cup race in club class.
I do think it was a thank you, but then he nearly lost the rear end on corner exits, having one hand off to say thanks.
Or maybe it was him saying, pick one line through the corner, please, with a specific gesture. I'll let you imagine that yourself. But rather than which, you can't really imagine it, but it's actually happening right now as the timer ticks down to 0. Is going to be William Antrobus. If he can hold off his teammate, Kamal Kelsey, it will be a Hills Motorsport 1-2. What a way for them to start the season, of course, with 2 of their drivers. But 17-year-old William Antrobus, who has come fresh out of karting, you've seen him firsthand, he's a fantastic driver. Quickly going from karts to cars. And some drivers just have that knack. They have that ability to jump into a car on a bigger circuit and just be able to drive well, do a grand job, and be in the mix from start to finish. There's Sam Middleton, who will come through in 4th position. As the Denny will be fastest in the Masters, and further back you can see Scott Wright with Chris Ginn and others in there too. But out of Coram and up towards Murray's for the final time, it's not easy to come into MX-5 Super Cup straight away and take your first race victory on your race start, but it's about to be done right now, because welcome to circuit racing, and quite frankly, welcome to MX-5 Super Cup, and welcome to the winner's circle for the first time on debut. William Antrobus up to the checkered flag, a punch to the air. He is ecstatic, and so he should be. William Antrobus, on debut in the championship at 17 years old, is victorious in the season opener of the Clapham North MOT Mazda MX-5 Super Cup. And I have to say, that is a phenomenal achievement for such a young driver on first go in Super Cup. That is not an easy thing to do, which means I have to agree on that one. I hope you agree on that one, Rassus. That's an exceptional achievement for such a young, talented guy. It's Kelsey in 2nd place, Denny in 3rd for Middleton and Hall, and of course it will be a club class win for Steve Kite in the end from Chris Ginn and Graham Rumsey. Richard Moore in 3rd position, but sensational stuff from William, and that's a thoroughly deserved win. Even though he got a little bit lucky with some other cars tangling, he was there when it counted, took the race victory, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, wow. 1 race, 1 victory. 100% record then for Antrobus so far in his circuit racing career. But yeah, unbelievable race from William. And if you just looked at the result, you'd think, oh, lights to flag victory. It's been a pretty simple one for Antrobus, but no, he had to work for that one. It had to be beneficial as well. He benefited from a couple of drivers getting into each other and a couple of drivers falling by the wayside. But either way, you've got to be in it to win it. And William was able to put himself in the perfect place, and when that did all happen ahead of him, he scooped it up and then weathered the storm through to the checkered flag to take the victory. A very well done to William Antrobus, and he started off the season with maximum points to his name. Fair play. Another great Mazda MX-5 race.